Welcome to the gift of being ordinary. I am offering today's program with the express reason of sharing a gift with you. Please make use of this content as you best see fit. And the gift is to remind us that each of us has a divine purpose. Each of us is here for a reason, even if we do not know why. Even if we feel utterly alone, even abandoned. Each of us matters to God. God sees us. God cares about us. He sees our faults, fears, and failings. He not only sees them, He knows how we feel from the inside out. To quote a popular saying, God does not create junk. We are each fearfully and wonderfully made. We are encouraged to trust this and to turn to Him. So, how do we more fully appreciate and assimilate this truth? Walk with me for a little and we will uncover this together. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Dr. Kyriaki FitzGerald. I am a licensed Massachusetts psychologist who for over 30 years has had the privilege of working with recovering survivors of trauma and addiction. For even more years than this, on behalf of my archdiocese and patriarchate, I have also served as a Greek Orthodox Christian theologian, both in this country and abroad, engaging subjects related to the application of theology and spirituality. I am grateful for the honor and responsibility of serving in both of these essentially interconnected and often apparently autonomous disciplines. Today, I begin by offering this pilot episode, which will give the why for creating this program. Through this series, I will share insights on various contemporary concerns that intersect with Eastern Christian theology, spirituality, and psychology, especially as these impact us in our everyday lives. This new series springs from my gratitude for the privilege of having served in the two general domains of theology and psychology for over these many years. I hope this and every episode is helpful for you. As I begin, I ask for your patience with my speaking style. I apologize for sounding like a boring lecturer to you. While this program reflects my training and experience in the realms of theology, spirituality, and psychology, this is all introductory. Nevertheless, as a lifelong practitioner in Eastern Orthodox Christian theology and spiritual life, I offer these presentations being accountable to this centuries-long living tradition. I'm also pleased to offer observations and impressions reflecting my training, licensing, and professional efforts in psychology and pastoral psychotherapy. These two streams of knowledge, so to speak, have been, by and large, highly complementary on the practical level, at least throughout my life. And so, I'm eager to share explorations of various topics at the interface of these fields in the hope that these may benefit us in our daily lives. I realize that no one, and especially me, comes close to having all of life's answers for life's challenges. Nevertheless, I will do my best to be helpful for you, despite my limitations. As these concepts may sometimes be complicated, I have asked Harbor Media to make my basic manuscript available online for you so that you may review my commentary at your leisure and in your spare time. And so allow me to share the bottom line lens of this program, the bottom line or lens through which every conversation will take place stands on three legs, so to speak. Every, hopefully, 20-minute or so presentation will strive to be 1, pastoral, 2, relational, and 3, phenomenological. In a few minutes, I will say more about this foundation. Forgive me as this first episode may turn out to be longer than just 20 minutes, as introductions often require a little extra time. Allow me to begin with the concept of the church as a hospital. With everything just shared in mind, it is not surprising that since ancient times, Eastern Christianity traditionally viewed the church as a place of holistic healing, historically often referred to by the church as a kind of hospital. Yes, I realize that many of us today, upon hearing the church being referred to as a hospital, may react negatively. We are drowning in a social media context that easily highlights the sins and shortcomings of Christians and their Christian ministers. Sadly, a number of these assertions may be pointing to a painful, factual event or events. And so, at least to a certain degree, we should not be surprised how much of modern society today aggressively views itself as patently post-Christian. But even more sadly, contrary to how a great number of people may imagine, is the fact that this blatant turning away from traditional Christian or Judeo-Christian values will not stop abuse. I fear that contemporary society's palpable rejection of Judeo-Christian perspectives has not only thrown out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak, but has inadvertently created possibilities for the speeding up of confusion and hence abuse over the course of time. And so, as a possible balance from the usual yet diverse understandings and misunderstandings our society often wrongly assumes about Christian life, I am going to share with you perspectives congruent with Eastern Christian tradition. This is because Christians from Eastern lands have typically lived through a divergent historical experience as compared to those Christians from the West. While I will be painting with a very, very broad brush, sharing perspectives from this unique and hopefully balancing approach may contribute healthy observations for us in our daily lives. So allow me to offer a very tiny bit of history at this point. During the first millennium, Western and Eastern Christians, while by and large united, began to diverge culturally, theologically, and liturgically. In the vastness of the Roman Empire of those times, Rome and Constantinople, also known as New Rome for many centuries, over those centuries became estranged. Furthermore, from the 7th century, the Muslim occupation of Eastern Christian lands accelerated the separation between Eastern and Western Christians. Limited Christian freedom under Islam, in a real sense, while also allowing Christianity to survive, forced the church to grow more underground. The vibrancy of Christian life as proclaimed through the gospel also was hiding in plain sight. Paradoxically, for those who did not succumb, the faith deepened in the lives of these Christians in a distinctive manner. There is much, I believe, this living experience and heritage has to offer us as we make our way through our broken world today. With this in mind, we can broadly state that the Eastern Church, as such, never experienced the Middle Ages, never experienced the Reformation, the Anti-Reformation, or the Enlightenment. This historical context has profoundly influenced Eastern Christian culture even to our own day. Moreover, and fast forward, when Russia suffered under the yoke of militant atheism through communism, the faithful once again practiced the fullness of their Christian faith underground, so to speak. This enabled the Slavic Christian tradition to survive. Carefully reflecting on lessons learned through the forbearance cultivated under the cloaks of oppression, invisibility, and imposed subservience, I believe may offer us helpful insights for today. And so now I will introduce the first leg of this program, which is a pastoral approach. The first leg concerns healing and wholeness, and this points to the pastoral. Eastern Christian theology and spirituality usually approach the human person from a dynamic and holistic approach, which is simultaneously physical, spiritual, and psychological. Striving to assist people from this perspective implies a pastoral viewpoint. This lens prods us to consider every person both practically and holistically in the presence of God, as they cultivate the relationship with God and others. These three dimensions, meaning that of the physical, spiritual, and psychological of being human, are intimately interrelated and interdependent. For our introduction today, I will note here that if one of these aspects of ourselves experiences a step toward wholeness and healing, the other two dimensions are affected in some manner as well, even if we do not see it or feel it. And yes, the opposite is also true. Although our contemporary fallen world incurs much suffering for many of us, this pastoral perspective reflects an ancient, fundamentally optimistic theological, anthropological living perspective. This perspective or tradition affirms that every one of us, all human persons, are spiritual, psychological, and physical beings created in the image and after the likeness of God. This is from Genesis, the first chapter of Genesis, verses 26 and 27. And so this optimistic lens is dynamic and holistic, as it is born out of lessons learned from much suffering and pain. This approach is grounded in and distilled through a living faith in the resurrection of Christ. Even today, despite various types of crosses we may be compelled to carry in our everyday lives, much like the Christians of old, through the agency of the Holy Spirit, we too can proclaim with them the ancient acclamation that Christ is in our midst. This perspective points to a God who cares about us personally and completely, body, mind, soul, and spirit. This God desires us to be in an eternally growing relationship with Him and desires our holistic and best for us and for one another. God cares about us in our entirety, physically, spiritually, and psychologically. And this care is unique and personal to each one of us. And so, a pastoral approach from this perspective refers to a dynamic that is often subtle, but always powerful. It is simultaneously rooted in the physical or practical. I may even dare say that being human in our everyday lives entails a simultaneous embodied psychospiritual experience in the presence of God. This pastoral approach undergirds the threefold components of humanity completely. As the Lord Jesus is fully God and fully human, the entirety of our human experience is infinitely important. Our personal lives matter to God. Even the very smallest dimension of what it means to be human matters to God, because the Lord Himself became matter for us. And let me offer now the second leg for this program, and that is a focus on the relational, meaning a focus on personhood and relationship. This second focus for this program reflects two sides of one coin. This centers on respecting the call for all humans to grow in becoming the unique persons each of us have been created to become. And so if our invitation to unique, unrepeated personhood reflects one side of the coin, the other side of the same coin rests on growing relationships. We cannot become our truest, unique selves, created in the image and after the likeness of God, outside of this relationship. Eastern Christians base their faith on the revelation that the one God is also a community, so to speak, of three divine persons. The East so emphasized this that at times Christians in the West would accuse Christians in the East of polytheism, that the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit were three different persons, so to speak, and they couldn't see the oneness. And the way the East would respond to the West would be, well, 1 and 1 and 1 equals 1. And that was our answer. One God and three. Always one God and three. We humans, personally bearing the same divine image and likeness on a creaturely level, can only become our truest selves while growing in healthy relationships. Mysteriously, we are invited to grow as unique persons, and by God's grace, through a growing relationship, meaning communion with Him, over time, we become our most authentic and unique selves as intended by God Himself. And so, paradoxically, and as strange as this may sound, our discovering and becoming the unique persons we have been created to become always depends on community. This community involves divine persons, human persons, even creation. We cannot become our fullest and most authentic selves solely on our own. While I intend to spend more time on this in the future, it is important to stress here that this teaching is in direct contradiction of the kakavagelion, and this is a Greek term which refers to the bad gospel of the norms prevalent today. Today, popular culture promotes a false or fake gospel. This fake gospel encourages, even stimulates a reality outside Judeo-Christian norms. This fake gospel promotes a distortion of the divine, of creation, even our own selves. We chase after nothing, no thing that can give us authentic life. And this, in the end, is idolatry. But I am getting way ahead of myself here, at least for today. Suffice it to say, until we each leave this world for the next, we are each susceptible to many types of fake gospels. And because of the almost instantaneous electronic connectivity that pervades our society today, I dare say that we are habitually, unconsciously, and simultaneously marinating in various types of false gospels, distracting us in many directions all at the same time. Please don't get me wrong. I love our many modern conveniences, but these conveniences also provide a mechanism to promote numerous powerful fake gospels. These fake gospels can be extremely attractive, and at some point, following them, however, will lead us to our own peril. They distract us and direct us away from our unique calling as human persons created in the image and likeness of God. Over time, we become our most authentic selves only through spiritually healthy, growing relationships. Relationships with God, relationships with others, relationships with creation, as well as relationship with our own selves. And so, to state this more clearly, our reaching the fulfillment of the divine purpose for our lives as healthy, complete, and unique human persons depends on unconditionally honest, growing relationships, one with the divine, 2, with our own selves, 3, with others, and 4, with creation. Again, I hope over time our conversations through this program will help illustrate this more fully. So now allow me to introduce the third leg of this program, a phenomenological approach. The third, and maybe the most difficult leg of this program to describe, at least for me, is that each program strives to be rooted in the now. This third foundation rests in the Eastern Christian spiritual and theological understanding of the gift or present of our peacefully being in the present, being in the presence of God, and being in the presence of all His kingdom, seen and unseen. This is the hardest of the three lenses or legs, I believe, to describe, because Eastern Christian spiritual tradition asserts that this ability to be fully present in the moment, except fleetingly by comparison by those very few holy among us, was lost by Adam and Eve. Today, scholars in both the fields of psychology and theology, especially the field of liturgics, would refer to this understanding of truly being fully in the present moment as being phenomenological. For Christians, this reveals the point where we, meaning each human person and all of God's heavenly realm, are utterly present to one another in that same moment. In this very moment, we are completely present to reality, reality with a capital R. From the Eastern Christian perspective, and for all of my cherished former seminary students, this refers to reality, meaning refers to personally our, and our here means everyone on earth and everybody in the kingdom, our abiding in the presence of the love of the living God, thrice holy. Yes, dear friends, this is a tall order of accountability to address in what is intended to usually be a 20-minute or so program. So allow me now to offer you more about the why of this program's title. I wish to compare toxic ordinariness with the gift of ordinariness. As humble as the word ordinary may be, most of us do not like to feel ordinary. When many of us, including me, think more deeply about being or feeling ordinary, we think of this word in terms of being dull, mundane, plain, common, commonplace, and boring. Yet perhaps most importantly for our conversation, I'm referring to the experience of being ordinary to the point of feeling utterly and completely worthless. This points to toxic ordinariness. Toxic ordinariness is poisonous, even deadly. Ordinariness from this perspective implies something or someone so common as to have virtually no intrinsic value. As such, this type of toxic ordinariness is poisonous, even deadly to the human psyche. To the contrary, the ordinariness to which I am referring, the gift of being ordinary, asserts that our unique and basic substance of who we are is extraordinary and beyond our limited capacity to imagine. Sadly, for so many of us, this discovery of the process of becoming our own best and authentic selves is yet to happen, as this can most fully be revealed within the context of spiritually healthy relationships. So let me spend a little time about the importance of healthy relationships. Psychologists and others for several decades have become aware of the vital necessity for healthy relationships as the foundation for psychologically healthy adults. Babies and young children require a firm yet flexible context of healthy relationships with healthy, trustworthy parental caregivers through which to grow. Regarding the goal of human persons, developing a healthy and mature identity, scientific inquiry has for several decades demonstrated the vital necessity for babies and young children to grow in a context of trustworthy, healthy relationships with trustworthy parental caregivers. This is mandatory for the development of a healthy and mature sense of self. In a sense, the baby's true, unique self develops within the context of safe relationships in a stable context. Lack of stable, healthy engagement for babies is experienced as a threat to existence. Babies may die when not engaged in a consistent, safe, and loving manner. They would rather act out, so to speak, in a way that is naughty, to solicit attention and health connection or relationship with adult caregivers. Being left alone is intolerable. Abandonment is experienced as a traumatic injury. Truly, babies may die if abandoned relationally, even if the child is safe in every other way. And so, let's return to our understanding of ordinariness. Our experiencing negative, even poisonous ordinariness is not the gift to which I am referring. This kind of toxic ordinariness, that very bad experience of feeling so valueless that we believe ourselves to be utterly insignificant, is not the kind of ordinariness to which I describe. Toxic ordinariness and toxic shame are kissing cousins, so to speak. And sometimes I think they may even be the same thing. Oops, there I go, once again getting ahead of myself. And so let me concentrate some more on the gift of ordinariness. The ordinariness to which I am referring is the ordinariness of the humanity of Jesus. This is the truest substance of ordinariness, and it is sublimely extraordinary. Our ordinariness, the fullness of our unique creation as human persons, ultimately rests personally in the God who created us. At the core of who we are is an unrepeatable, amazing, and priceless creation. And so for our purpose, when I refer to ordinariness, I am referring to the ordinariness with the norm being God. God's ordinariness is in all actuality extraordinary. God's ordinariness, the divine essential substance, so to speak, is utterly beyond our ability to contain or even imagine. And we are created, as the book of Genesis states, in the divine image and after his likeness. The psalmist exclaims, "I praise you, Lord, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." None of us have haphazardly come into being. Each person is deliberately and uniquely created by God from before the creation of time. In the book of Jeremiah in the Bible, we read an exclamation on behalf of God, which points to each of our creation as personal. It declares this: "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you." These passages remind us that none of us are here by accident. Each of us has a divine intention and purpose in the mystery of who we are called to become as a person and through our life's mission. And for many, if not most of us, at the very least, speaking for myself, the Lord usually reveals this to us on a need-to-know basis. The great 4th century Egyptian Christian monk and spiritual master, Saint Macarius the Great, taught this to his disciples: Look how mighty are the heavens and the earth, the sun and the moon. But it was not in these that the Lord rested. The human person, therefore, is of far more value than all creatures. And I dare say he is of far more value than any creature, visible or invisible, even more valuable than the ministering angels. When God said, "Let us make man in our image and after our likeness," he was not referring to the archangels Michael and Gabriel. He was speaking about the spiritual substance of the human person, his immortal soul. With this in mind, even though we are called to deliberately cultivate our side of our personal growth, we do not create ourselves by ourselves alone. It is vital to pay more attention to the mystery of our own creation, of our own personal creation. For the Eastern Church, a mystery, mysterion, refers to the phenomenon that begins, abides, and ends with God, while at the same time inviting us to freely and fully become collaborators in this process. Eastern Christians have historically referred to this process as the process of synergy, or synergia in Greek. The Lord Jesus asserts this deep, personal, and deliberate relationship with God taking the lead in this mystery, in this mysterion, as well when we read in the Gospel of Luke the following. Jesus says, "But the very hairs on your head are also numbered." Both the Gospel accounts of Luke and Matthew record this teaching of Jesus. Jesus stresses this to reduce his listeners' fears about the everyday cares and anxieties that can so easily consume us. Despite our fallen human context and external appearances, God cares about each one of us fully and personally. And so I will now repeat what I shared with you at the beginning of our time together. Each of us has a divine purpose. Each of us is here for a reason, even if we do not know why. Even if we feel utterly alone, even abandoned. Each of us matters to God. He sees us, he cares about us, he sees our faults, fears, and failings. He not only sees them, he knows how we feel from the inside out. To quote a popular saying, God does not create junk. We are each fearfully and wonderfully made. We are encouraged to trust this and to turn to him. I realize that I have spoken far too long for our first and maybe only visit. For now, I wish to remind us of one way to help disempower those messages and temptations that are negative and distract us from our call to become the persons we have been created to be. This is to disempower the negativity by striving to turn our attention away from the toxic negative and to look toward the life-giving positive. We stand to gain far more by focusing on all that is good, on all that seeks the genuine life-giving God. And this is exactly what St. Paul asserts in the book of Philippians. He writes this, "Brothers and sisters, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue, and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things." Later in the 4th century, St. Gregory, the Bishop of Nyssa, while teaching his flock why looking to the good and hence also to God is fundamental, he writes this. He teaches us this, "For this is the safest way to protect the good things you enjoy. Realize how much your Creator has honored you above all other creatures. He did not make the heavens in his image, nor the moon, nor the sun, nor the beauty of the stars, or anything else which surpasses understanding. You alone are a reflection of eternal beauty, a receptacle of happiness, an image of the true light. And if you look to him, you will become what he is, imitating him who shines in you, whose glory reflects your purity. Nothing in the grandeur of creation can equal your grandeur. All of the heavens can fit in the palm of God's hand. Although he is so great that he can hold all of creation in his palm, you can wholly embrace him. He dwells within you. As we continue to seek to look to him, I wholeheartedly thank you for your time and attention. Thank you.